My brother convinced my best friend, the girl I had loved for as long as I could remember, that I would never make a move on her. He did this just so he could ask her out and be with her. I ended up blocking both of them and tried to move on. But 6 months later, I got an emergency call from the hospital, and she needed me. When I was 22, I finally decided to tell my best friend how I felt, so I brought her flowers. But when she came out, she was wearing my brother's sweatshirt and smiling at me as if I hadn't been in love with her since we were 13. Ryan had been my closest friend for what felt like half my life. She was the kind of girl who'd bring snacks to class but forget her pencil. We met back in 7th grade. She tripped over my backpack and fell hard onto the pavement. I rushed to help her up. She called me an idiot for leaving my bag in the middle of the hallway and then asked if I wanted to skip gym class with her. From that moment, we were inseparable. Late-night FaceTimes, summer movie marathons, sitting on a roof, chatting about life as if we were the only two people who mattered. Over the years, we both dated other people, but it never lasted. It always felt like no one understood us the way we understood each other. She even joked once that if we were both still single by the time we were 30, we'd get married. I laughed it off, but I never forgot it. My older brother, David, knew exactly how I felt. I told him over and over. He always brushed it off, saying things like, if you haven't made a move by now, she's not interested. Or, you're just confusing friendship with love. But I knew better. I knew how she looked at me when I made her laugh. I knew she always called me first when her life was falling apart. So when Ryan finally broke up with her long-term boyfriend, I told David that I was going to tell her how I felt. I even admitted that I was scared, but I was ready. He gave me a look I couldn't quite read and then slapped me on the back, saying, go for it. I picked up sunflowers, her favorite flowers, and even put on my best and only suit. I practiced what I was going to say all the way over there. It wasn't going to be perfect, but it was going to be real. When I turned the corner onto her street, I saw David's car parked in her driveway. At first, I thought maybe he had just stopped by to grab something. I waited in my car with the flowers in my lap for almost 10 minutes, trying to gather the courage to get out. Then her porch light flicked on. She came outside, barefoot, her hair still damp as if she had just gotten out of the shower. She wore a hoodie that was way too big for her. It was David's Attack on Titan hoodie, the one I had ordered special for him last year. She picked up a takeout bag from the porch, and then she laughed. The laugh I had been waiting to hear for years, but this time it wasn't for me. She laughed and then turned to go back inside, as if someone was waiting for her. I didn't get out. I didn't knock. I didn't say a word. Instead, I left the flowers on her porch like a coward and drove off. An hour later, I received a text from her. That was sweet. He loved them. She didn't even have to mention David's name. I knew exactly who she meant. My stomach sank, but I didn't reply. That night, I couldn't sleep. It was as if none of it mattered. I had told him I was going to tell her. That night was supposed to be the night. He just laughed and said, guess you were too slow. The worst part? I still tried to act like everything was normal around her. She started officially dating David, and I was still the guy who helped her fix her resume and drove her to the DMV. I was still the one who listened when she needed to vent about work. I convinced myself it was fine, that maybe I just wasn't supposed to have her. Then came that group dinner at Ryan Place. She sat next to David, leaning into him like it was nothing. Halfway through, David got up to use the bathroom. She looked at me and said, you're the only one who really gets me. I need your help with writing a speech for David's birthday. I smiled, but something inside me snapped. Later that night, as we were cleaning up, I found a note tucked inside some junk mail, addressed to me. She didn't notice as I picked it up. Inside, it said, I think I've been in love with you all along. I'm just scared. I don't want to lose what we have. It was dated the day before I showed up with the flowers. I stared at it for what felt like 10 minutes. I don't even remember breathing. But then I put it back and didn't say a word. I went home and blocked both of them. Ryan had left me all along, but in the end, she chose my brother. That was 6 months ago. I've been doing better since then. Or at least, I thought I was. Because last night, I got a text from an unknown number. It said, I miss you. I think about you every day. At first, I didn't respond, but I didn't delete it either. Then one of my friends texted me, letting me know that Ryan and David had broken up. I stared at my phone for a solid hour, typing out a response, but then deleting it. I finally went to bed around 3 a.m., still unsure of what to do. The next morning, I woke up to 3 more texts from the same number. I knew exactly who it was. All of them were from Ryan. She kept apologizing and saying how much she missed me. I still didn't respond. I went to work like usual. I'm a graphic designer at a small marketing firm. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. I couldn't focus on anything. My boss, Jack, noticed and asked if I was okay. I just nodded and said I hadn't slept well. He didn't press it. After work, I hit the gym to clear my head. I was halfway through my workout when I spotted David across the room. We hadn't spoken since I blocked him. He saw me, too. For a moment, we just stood there, staring at each other. Then he walked over. I almost walked out right then. Hey, he said, like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't completely betrayed me. I nodded but kept lifting weights. He stood there awkwardly for a minute. Ryan and I broke up, he finally said. I heard. I didn't look at him. She's been asking about you. Says you won't respond to her texts. I set the weights down and grabbed my towel. Not my problem. As I started to walk away, he grabbed my arm. Look, I know I messed up, but she really misses you. I pulled my arm away from his grip. You both made your choice, I said, walking away without a second glance. By the time I got to my car, I had 5 more texts from Ryan. She was asking to meet up for coffee, saying she needed to talk, that it was important. I still didn't respond. That night, sleep evaded me once again. I couldn't stop thinking about that note I had found. She told me she loved me, but was scared. She jumped into things with David right after. Nothing about it made sense. Around midnight, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I peeked through the peephole and saw Ryan standing there, hugging herself against the cold. She looked like she'd been crying. For a moment, I considered not opening the door. But, for some reason, I still cared. What are you doing here? I asked as I cracked open the door. She looked up at me with those eyes that always got me. You wouldn't answer my texts. I didn't invite her in. It's midnight, Ryan. I know. I'm sorry. I really need to talk to you. I sighed and stepped aside to let her in. She walked in, scanning my apartment. I'd moved out since the last time she'd been here, needed a fresh start after everything. Nice place, she commented. I didn't respond. I just stood there, arms crossed, waiting for her to say whatever it was she had come here for. She took a seat on my couch without being invited, classic Ryan, always making herself at home. I stayed standing. David and I broke up, she finally said. I know. I made a mistake, she added, looking up at me. A huge mistake. I didn't say anything. This was the moment I'd imagined for 6 months, her coming back, admitting she was wrong. But now that it was actually happening, I felt nothing. Maybe not nothing, but numb. Did you mean it? I asked. The note. Did you mean it? She looked confused for a second, and then her eyes widened. You found that? I nodded. Yes, I meant it. I was going to give it to you that night. But then David showed up and... I prompted. She hesitated before answering. He told me how you felt about me. Said you'd been in love with me for years but were too scared to say anything. Said you'd probably never make a move. I felt my jaw tighten. And I got scared, she admitted. I thought about what would happen if we tried and it didn't work out. I'd lose my best friend. So when he kissed me, I don't know. It seemed safer. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Safer? You chose my brother because it was safer, I said, the words bitter as they left my mouth. She winced. I know how it sounds. Do you? I asked, frustration creeping into my voice. Because it sounds like you knew how I felt. You knew how you felt. And you still chose him. She lowered her gaze to her hands. I know. I messed up. But I'm here now, she said softly. I stood up and started pacing around my living room. The floorboards creaked under my feet. The situation felt surreal. 6 months of silence, and now she was sitting on my couch like she had a right to be there. The soft light from my lamp cast shadows across her face, accentuating the nervous way she chewed on her lower lip, a habit I used to find endearing. Why now, Ryan? I asked, my voice echoing in the quiet room. What changed? She wiped at her eyes, smudging her mascara. I missed you. Every day. David was. He wasn't you. Her voice cracked on the last word. I stopped pacing, my fists clenching at my sides. That's it? You missed me? After 6 months of nothing? The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. I tried to call you. I texted. You blocked me, she shot back. She was starting to get defensive now, her posture straightening. Classic Ryan move whenever she was backed into a corner. I'd seen it countless times over the years of our friendship. Yeah. After finding out you picked my brother over me, even though you said you loved me. I ran my hands through my hair, tugging at the roots in frustration. Do you have any idea what that did to me? Do you even understand how it felt? She stood up and took a step toward me, her familiar vanilla perfume filling the air. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. Her eyes were pleading now, and I took a step back, needing the space. This wasn't just about forgetting to return a book. You knew how I felt. You felt the same way. And you still chose David. The sting of betrayal still felt fresh, like an open wound that wouldn't heal. I was confused. I was scared. She was crying now, tears streaming down her cheeks, leaving dark trails in her makeup. Can we get coffee tomorrow? Talk this through properly? Please? I wanted to say no. I really did. But some part of me, the part that had loved her since we were 13, sitting side by side in biology class, couldn't bring myself to. Fine. Coffee. That was it. My resolve was weaker than I cared to admit. She smiled through her tears. I couldn't help but notice she was still wearing his hoodie. The same one she had worn when I showed up with sunflowers. David's car in her driveway that night. By morning, I was exhausted and completely confused. Dark circles under my eyes. I almost texted her to cancel, but I didn't. Something pulled me toward this meeting, despite my better judgment. We met at our old spot, a little cafe halfway between our places. The place with the chipped blue mugs and the barista who always remembered our orders. I got there first and grabbed a table in the back, away from the windows. She showed up 10 minutes late, which was early by Ryan standards. She always ran on her own time, what our friend group used to call Ryan Standard Time. Hey, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. She looked better than the night before, less puffy-eyed. Her hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail, a few strands framing her face. Hey, I replied, already nursing my usual black coffee. The waitress came over, and Ryan ordered her usual, complicated as always. A caramel latte with whipped cream, an extra shot, and cinnamon on top. Some things never changed. We sat in an uncomfortable silence, waiting for her drink to arrive. This had never happened before. We never ran out of things to talk about. Until now. The cafe buzzed around us, the noise of other conversations filling the void between us that we couldn't seem to bridge. Finally, she spoke, fidgeting with her napkin. So, how have you been? I almost laughed at the question. How have I been? After my best friend and my brother got together behind my back? Just great, Ryan. Living the dream. The sarcasm dripped from my voice, and she flinched, her shoulders hunching slightly. I deserve that, she murmured. Yeah, you do. I took a sip of my coffee, the bitterness matching my mood. So, why are we here? Really? She looked down at her drink, swirling the whipped cream with her straw. I told you. I miss you. I made a mistake. With David? Or with me? I leaned forward, challenging her. Both. She reached across the table as if she was going to touch my hand, but I pulled back. Her fingers lingered on the table for a moment before retreating. David and I, it was never right. We fought all the time. He's not like you. I sat back in my chair, the wood creaking beneath me. So what? I'm just your backup plan now that things didn't work out with him? We fell into silence again. I watched her stir her latte, adding more sugar from the little packets on the table. Some things always stayed the same, like her inexplicable love for sweets. Do you and David still talk? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I froze, my coffee cup hanging halfway to my lips. What? I blinked, caught off guard. I just wondered if you and David are still in touch, she said, not meeting my gaze. Something felt off, like there was more behind those words than she was letting on. Her question was strange, almost like it had an agenda. I blocked him too, remember? Haven't talked to him since that night. She nodded quickly, almost too quickly. Right, of course. I need closure, you know? With both of you. And just like that, the truth hit me like a slap across the face. You don't miss me, do you? The words came out before I could stop them. You miss being the one chosen. Her eyes widened, panic flashing through her expression. No, that's not. You're here because David dumped you. I cut her off, my voice sharp. Now you're making sure you don't lose me too. I stood up abruptly, the sound of my chair scraping across the floor loud in the silence. You don't want me, Ryan. You just don't want to be alone. She blinked, tears welling up in her eyes. That's not fair, she cried, her mascara running down her cheeks. I do miss you. I do care about you, she said through sobs. Maybe you do, I muttered, my voice softening. But not the way I need you to. I tossed a few bills on the table for my coffee, probably more than needed, and turned to walk away. Goodbye, Ryan. I walked out without a second glance. This time, she was left staring at a door that wouldn't open. The irony wasn't lost on me. I drove aimlessly for hours afterward, the radio playing softly in the background. Eventually, I ended up at the beach, sitting in my car, watching the waves crash against the shore. The repetitive rhythm was oddly calming. My phone buzzed with texts from Ryan, but I couldn't bring myself to read them. I was done. The sun was starting to set, casting long shadows as it dipped lower on the horizon. When I finally returned home, I found David sitting on my doorstep, hunched over his phone. Great. Just what I needed. He looked up as I pulled in, his face a mix of guilt and resolve. What do you want? I asked, my annoyance clear as I slammed the car door. He stood up, brushing off his jeans. Ryan called me. And? I crossed my arms, maintaining distance. And I wanted to make sure you're okay. He shoved his hands in his pockets, clearly uncomfortable. I couldn't help it, I let out a harsh laugh. Now you care if I'm okay? That's rich. I pushed past him to unlock the door, the key sticking like it always did. He followed me inside, uninvited. Clearly, boundary issues ran in the family. The living room still held remnants of Ryan's visit from the night before, a water glass on the coffee table, the cushion slightly sunken where she had sat. Look, I know I messed up, David said, lingering by the doorway. But Ryan and I are over. For good. I turned to face him, studying the familiar yet strange features of my brother. Why are you telling me this? Because she loves you, man. I scoffed. The safety net. The backup plan. David sighed deeply, shoulders sagging. That's not true. She was a mess after you blocked her. She talked about you constantly. While she was with you? I snapped, unable to hide my bitterness. David looked uncomfortable, his cheeks flushing. It wasn't easy, but that's why we broke up. She couldn't get over you. I didn't know what to believe anymore. My emotions were a tangled mess. Just go, David. I'm tired. And I was tired in a way I couldn't explain, drained by the emotional whiplash of the past 2 days. She's at Sophia's place, he said as he turned to leave. If you change your mind, she'll be there. Sophia, Ryan's college roommate, still hung out with her sometimes. They bonded over their love for indie films and craft beer. I didn't say anything. I just closed the door behind him and collapsed onto my couch. The same spot where Ryan had sat just the night before. The next day was Saturday. I woke up to more texts, this time from both Ryan and David. I ignored them all and went for a run, pushing myself harder than usual. I needed to clear my head. The morning air was crisp, filling my lungs as I pounded the pavement, trying to outrun my thoughts. When I returned home, sweaty and breathless, I found a package waiting for me on the doorstep. No return address. I opened it cautiously, half expecting something dramatic. Inside was a photo album. Our photo album. Ryan and I had started it in high school, adding pictures to it every year. I thought I was ready for it, but I wasn't. I flipped through the pages of the photo album slowly, sitting on my front steps. There we were at prom, both with different dates, but somehow we ended up in most of each other's photos anyway. There we were at graduation, making silly faces with our caps askew. College road trips in my old Corolla. Her 21st birthday when I held her hair back all night as she hugged the toilet. And then, there was my dad's funeral, where she didn't leave my side for 3 straight days. Bringing me food I didn't eat, making sure I showered. But the last picture was new. One I'd never seen before. It was from that night 6 months ago. Me, standing on her porch with sunflowers, looking through her window. She must have snapped it before she came outside, before I saw her wearing David's hoodie. I looked so hopeful, so nervous, so in love. The sunflowers were bright against the dimming twilight, a burst of color in the fading light. Below the photo, in her familiar loopy handwriting, she'd written, the moment I made the biggest mistake of my life. I closed the album and set it aside. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me like this. She had made her choice. Now, she had to live with it. But the image of me, so full of hope that was about to be crushed, stayed with me. I spent the rest of the weekend ignoring my phone. By Monday, the texts had stopped. I went to work, trying to get back into the routine of normal life. Jack gave me a new project, which helped keep my mind occupied. The familiar rhythm of coding was comforting, logical in a way relationships could never be. On Wednesday, I ran into Sophia at the grocery store. She acted surprised to see me, but I knew better. This was Ryan's favorite store, even though it wasn't close to her apartment. Sophia was on a mission, clearly. Her casual browsing was too deliberate to be accidental. How are you? She asked, stepping into my path in the cereal aisle. I tried to move around her. Fine, I said, my cart half full of bachelor basics. Ryan is a mess, she said bluntly, not one to beat around the bush. She's barely eating, barely sleeping. I gripped the handle of my cart tighter, feeling a pang of irritation. That's not my problem anymore. Sophia crossed her arms, the sound of her bracelets jangling as she did. She made a mistake, a big one. But she loves you. She has a funny way of showing it, I replied, trying to keep my tone even, but I could feel the hurt slip through. I'm not defending what she did, Sophia said, her voice softening. It was messed up. But I've known Ryan for years, and I've never seen her like this. I grabbed a random box of cereal just to have something to do with my hands. What do you want from me, Sophia? Just talk to her. Really talk. That's all. She finally stepped aside, clearing the way. I put the cereal in my cart, not looking back at her. I'll think about it. But I didn't think about it. Or at least, I tried not to. That night, I found myself scrolling through old photos on my phone. There was Ryan and me at the state fair last year, her hair tangled with cotton candy. Ryan asleep on my shoulder during movie night, her face peaceful. Ryan making that ridiculous face she always made when she was trying not to laugh, her nose scrunched up, eyes crinkling. I missed her. Not just the romantic version of her, but the friendship. Her stupid jokes. The way she always knew exactly what I was thinking. 6 years of friendship, gone in an instant because of one bad choice. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks, and the weight of it sat heavily in my chest. The next day, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something about the local area code made me pick up. Hello? Is this Samuel? The voice on the other end was unfamiliar, professional, and slightly rushed. Yeah, who's this? This is Beverly from Memorial Hospital. You're listed as Ryan Miller's emergency contact. My heart sank, and a cold wave of fear rushed through me. What happened? Is she okay? She was in a car accident. Nothing life-threatening, but she's asking for you. I didn't even think about it. I'll be right there. I drove to the hospital in a daze, running a yellow light without even noticing. All the anger, all the hurt, it was still there. But suddenly, none of it mattered. Ryan was hurt. She needed me. That was the only thing I needed to focus on. The hospital parking lot was packed, and I had to circle around twice before I found a spot. When I finally got to her room, she was sitting up in bed, looking pale but alert. She had a bandage on her forehead, and her arm was in a sling. A hospital gown swallowed her small frame, making her look even more fragile. You came, she said, sounding surprised, her voice hoarse. Of course I came. I stayed by the door, unsure whether to come any closer. The room smelled of antiseptic and that faint floral scent they used to clean the floors. I didn't think you would, she said, glancing down at her hands. One had 4 attached. After everything, I moved to the chair beside her bed, the vinyl squeaking under me as I sat down. What happened? Some idiot ran a red light. T-boned my car. She tried to smile, but it turned into more of a grimace. My poor civic didn't make it. But you're okay? I couldn't hide the concern in my voice. Concussion. Dislocated shoulder. A few cuts and bruises. I'll live. She met my eyes directly, her gaze clearer than it had been at the cafe. I'm sorry they called you. I never updated my emergency contacts. It's fine, I said, shifting in my seat, feeling uncomfortable. Is there anyone else I should call? Your mom? Sophia? She shook her head, wincing slightly as she did. Mom's in Florida. Sophia's coming later. She hesitated, picking at the edge of her blanket. David stopped by earlier. I tensed, my jaw tightening without meaning to. Oh. I didn't ask him to, she quickly added. He heard from Sophia. She seemed eager to clarify that point. We sat in silence, the awkwardness thick between us. A nurse came in to check her vitals, her cheerful demeanor a stark contrast to the tension in the room. She finished quickly and left us alone again. Thank you for coming, Ryan finally said, her voice small. I know you hate me right now. I don't hate you, Ryan, I said, the words coming out softer than I expected. I sighed, the weight of the admission lifting a little off my shoulders. I'm angry. I'm hurt. But I don't hate you, I added. She nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. I got your flowers, by the way, she said quietly. The sunflowers, I responded, my breath catching in my throat. What? After you left, she continued. I found them on the porch. She looked away, her gaze drifting to the window where the afternoon sunlight was streaming in. I knew they were from you. But you texted me saying he loved them, like they were for David. The sting of that memory still lingered. She winced, closing her eyes briefly. I panicked. I didn't know what to say. I thought you knew I was with David, and you were just being nice. Being nice? I stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. I was there to tell you I loved you. I know that now, she replied softly, her hand reaching toward me, wincing at the movement. I didn't then, she added, not until later, when David told me. I started pacing the small room, running my hands through my hair in disbelief. This is insane. This whole situation is insane. I know, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I messed everything up. I was scared of losing you, so I pushed you away, she continued, her voice breaking. How stupid is that? I stopped pacing and turned to face her. Why David? Of all people. Why my brother? She looked miserable, her shoulders slumped. He was there. He was safe, she said, her voice shaking. He wasn't you. What does that even mean? I was struggling to wrap my head around her logic. It means I was terrified of ruining what we had, she almost shouted, her voice echoing in the small room. You were my best friend. The most important person in my life. What if we tried and it didn't work out? I'd lose everything. Her voice cracked. So, instead, you chose my brother? I shook my head, completely bewildered. Guaranteeing you'd lose me anyway? That makes no sense, Ryan. I know it doesn't, she whispered. I wasn't thinking clearly. She wiped away her tears with her good hand, the motion slow and deliberate. And then it was too late. You found out. You blocked me. And I was stuck in this relationship I never really wanted. I sank back into my seat, suddenly feeling the weight of everything. The emotional roller coaster had taken its toll. Why didn't you just break up with him? I asked, my voice tired. I tried. She sighed, her eyes downcast. Multiple times. But then he'd talk about how it would ruin his relationship with you forever. And I'd feel guilty. She glanced at the hospital bracelet on her wrist, her fingers lightly tracing the edge. He knew exactly what to say to make me stay. I nodded, my voice flat. That ship had already sailed. She reached for my hand, and this time I let her take it. Her fingers were cold, but I didn't pull away. I'm so sorry, Samuel. Her voice trembled with sincerity. For everything. I looked at our hands together. It felt right, even after everything. Like pieces of a puzzle that were meant to fit together. I need time, Ryan, I said, my voice softening. This is a lot to process. She nodded, her grip on my hand tightening just slightly. I understand. I stood up reluctantly, letting go of her hand. I should go. Let you rest. Will you come back? She looked so vulnerable when she asked, her eyes wide and uncertain. Yeah, I said after a moment. I'll come back. I visited her at the hospital for the next 2 days. We talked about everything except us. Work, friends, the terrible hospital food, the nurse with the interesting tattoos. It almost felt like old times, except for the elephant in the room. She was released on Saturday, and Sophia came to pick her up. But that night, Ryan asked if I could come over to talk. I agreed, but I was nervous. I still didn't know what I wanted. Part of me was still angry. Part of me still loved her. And part of me was terrified of getting hurt again. I spent the day cleaning my apartment, a nervous habit of mine that, at least, had some productive results. When I arrived at her apartment, Sophia let me in before conveniently remembering she had plans. Ryan was sitting on the couch, looking better than she had in the hospital, but still bruised. The marks were fading from purple to yellow-green. She was wearing an oversized sweater I recognized as one of her favorites. Hey, she said softly, tucking her legs underneath her. Hey, I responded, sitting in the chair across from her, not quite ready to be too close. The familiar scent of her apartment, vanilla candles, and the lavender detergent she always used flooded my senses, and memories came rushing back. Thanks for coming, she said, adjusting her sling with a wince. And for visiting me in the hospital. I nodded, noticing the photo album I had received was now resting on her coffee table. How are you feeling? I asked. Better. Still sore. She took a deep breath, her good hand fidgeting with the edge of her sweater. I need to tell you something. Here it comes, I thought. Okay. I saw David yesterday. Her voice was steady, but I could see the nervousness in her eyes. I tensed, preparing for the worst. And I told him I couldn't see him anymore. Not even his friends. Not for a while. She said it firmly, as if she had rehearsed it. I wasn't expecting that. The words caught me off guard. Why? Because it's not fair to any of us. This. Weird triangle, she said, her eyes meeting mine without hesitation. I chose wrong, Samuel. I've been choosing wrong for months. I don't want to make that mistake again. I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt relieved. But another part of me was still skeptical. The silence between us stretched out, filled only by the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. Finally, I gestured to the photo album on the table. I found the album. She nodded, a small smile pulling at her lips. I left it for you. I wanted you to remember us. The real us. Not what happened these past few months. I looked at the photo at the end, the one of me standing on her porch. The image of me holding sunflowers, looking through her window, had burned itself into my memory. I took it when I saw you pull up. Before David called me back inside. Her gaze dropped, and a wave of shame crossed her face. I was so happy to see you there. I thought maybe. But then I got scared again. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. Are you still scared? Terrified, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm more scared of losing you forever. We talked for hours after that. Really talked, like we used to. About everything, about what had happened, how we felt, what we wanted from each other. The night settled around us, the city light sparkling through her window. By the time I left, it was nearly morning, the sky lightening with the first hints of dawn. So, where does this leave us? She asked as I was about to head out. She stood in the doorway, her good arm wrapped around herself. I turned to look at her, taking in the sight of her bruised, vulnerable, yet somehow still beautiful. I don't know yet, I replied, my voice steady but uncertain. But I'm willing to find out. She smiled then, a real smile that reached her eyes. That's all I'm asking for. I went home feeling lighter than I had in months. Not fixed. Not perfect. But hopeful. Maybe we could find our way back to each other. Or maybe something better could come out of this. The next day, I got a text from David, asking to meet. I almost ignored it. But something made me feel like I needed closure there too. We met at a bar downtown, the sparse Sunday crowd giving the place a quiet, subdued vibe. It was awkward at first, both of us nursing our beers and avoiding eye contact. The sports game on the TV buzzed in the background, filling the silence between us. Ryan told me you visited her in the hospital, David said finally, peeling the label off his beer bottle. I nodded, my fingers tracing a water ring on the wooden table. She told me you did too. Yeah, I muttered. He took a long sip, his Adam's apple bobbing as he swallowed. She also told me she doesn't want to see me anymore. She mentioned that, I said, keeping my voice neutral, studying his reaction. David met my gaze, his eyes as familiar as my own. We'd always been competitive, but now it felt like something deeper had been broken between us. Why did you do it, David? I asked, the hurt slipping through my voice. Really? He lowered his gaze, his shame obvious. He couldn't hold my stare. I don't know, he finally admitted. At first, I just wanted to talk to her about you. Tell her how you felt. But then? I pressed, my voice thickening with bitterness. I don't know. I guess I wanted to see if I could. If you could what? My voice rose in anger. Steal the girl I loved? David looked into his beer, the admission hanging heavy between us. You always got everything so easily, he said quietly, almost apologetically. Friends. Grades. Jobs. I guess I just wanted to win for once. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I stared at him, completely stunned. That's messed up, David. I know, he said, his usual confidence nowhere to be found. I realized it pretty quickly. But by then, it was too late. He blocked us both, I said, the words bitter as they left my mouth. And Ryan was, well, she was a mess. Talking about you constantly. I knew I made a huge mistake, David murmured, his remorse genuine. I didn't know what to say. So, we sat there in silence, finishing our beers, the weight of the conversation hanging between us. The unspoken history between us filled the silence where words should have been. Do you think we'll ever be okay again? He finally asked, his voice uncertain. I sighed, letting the weight of the question settle. I don't know, David. That's going to take time. He nodded, accepting the answer without argument. I understand, he said softly, and I could hear the sincerity in his voice as I drove home. My mind swirled with everything that had happened, the betrayal, the hurt, the confusion. But also the possibility of something new. Something honest. Something real. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, a beautiful ending to a complicated day. I pulled over to the side of the road and texted Ryan. Dinner tomorrow? Her response came instantly. I'd love that. I quickly sent her the time and place, nothing fancy, just the Thai place we used to go to all the time. I spent way too long picking out a shirt, even though she'd seen me in basically everything I owned over the years. I finally settled on a blue button-down that she once said brought out my eyes. Not that I remembered that detail specifically. I arrived at the restaurant 15 minutes early and grabbed our usual table by the window. Teresa, the waitress, recognized me and asked where I'd been lately. I shrugged, saying I'd been busy with work. It was easier than explaining the mess everything had become. Ryan showed up right on time, which was a first. She usually ran at least 10 minutes late to everything. She still had her arm in a sling, but she'd done her makeup and fixed her hair. She looked good. Really good. And my heart did that stupid flip it always did when I saw her. Hey, she said softly, sliding into the seat across from me. Thanks for suggesting this place, she added. I've missed their pad thai. Yeah, me too. I fidgeted with my napkin, suddenly feeling nervous. We talked for hours at her apartment, but this felt different. More official. We ordered our usual dishes, pad thai for her, green curry for me, and spring rolls to share. The familiar routine was comforting. For a while, we talked about normal things, her accident, my work, a movie she wanted to see. It almost felt like old times. So she said, her voice hesitating as she set her fork down. I've been thinking a lot about everything. I nodded, taking a bite of curry to give myself a moment to gather my thoughts. Me too, I said. I want to be completely honest with you. She put her fork down, her hands resting on the table. No more half-truths or hiding things. I'd appreciate that, I said, my stomach in knots. She took a deep breath. I've been in love with you since we were 16. That summer we went camping with your family. And you stayed up all night with me when I was scared of the noises outside. I remembered it clearly. She'd been so embarrassed about being afraid, but I didn't care. We played cards by flashlight until sunrise. I smiled at the memory. Yeah, I remember. That's when I knew, she continued. But I never said anything because I was terrified of ruining our friendship. She pushed her food around her plate, the words hanging between us. Then in college, when you started dating Samantha, I thought I'd missed my chance. I nodded, remembering how long I dated Samantha. Samantha and I had dated for almost a year. She was nice. But there was always something missing. I broke up with her because she wasn't you, I admitted. I just didn't realize it at the time. Ryan looked up at me, surprised. Really? I nodded. Yeah. No one ever measured up to you. She smiled, a small, sad smile. We really messed this up, didn't we? Spectacularly, I said with a dry chuckle. I couldn't help but laugh a little. The whole situation seemed so absurd when you looked at it from the outside. When David showed up that night, I was actually waiting for you, I said, the memory bitter in my mind. She looked down at her hands, her voice soft. I'd finally worked up the courage to tell you how I felt. I even wrote that note. But then David came over instead, I said, trying to keep the bitterness out of my voice. He said he wanted to talk about you. About us, she corrected me. He told me you'd been in love with me for years but never made a move. She shook her head, her eyes full of regret. Then he said something that really got to me. He said that if we tried and it didn't work out, it would destroy you. I was scared and confused, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. And yes, I believed him, because he's your brother. I thought he knew you, she added, looking genuinely remorseful. It was the biggest mistake of my life. I leaned back, trying to process everything she had just told me. David had manipulated both of us, and that realization made my blood boil. But it also lifted a heavy weight from my chest. Ryan hadn't just chosen him over me on a whim. She had been tricked. Just like I had been. When did you realize what he'd done? I asked, needing to know. Pretty quickly, she answered. But by then, you'd blocked us both. And I didn't know how to fix it. She reached across the table with her good hand. I tried to break up with him so many times. But he always made me feel guilty. She paused, and I hesitantly took her hand. It felt small and warm in mine. He said it would ruin any chance of you forgiving either of us. That's messed up, I said quietly. I know. I should have been stronger. She squeezed my hand. The accident was actually a weird blessing. Gave me perspective. Life's too short for this bullshit, you know, she added with a half smile. I couldn't help but laugh. Classic Ryan, finding the silver lining even in a car wreck. Yeah, I know. We finished dinner, the conversation flowing more easily now. The tension between us had broken, replaced by something that felt a lot like hope. I paid the bill despite her protests, and walked her to her car. The night air was cool, and the stars were just starting to appear overhead. So, where do we go from here, she asked, leaning against her car door. I inhaled deeply, letting the weight of everything settle in. I think we take things slow. See what we are to each other now. She gave a relieved nod. I'd really like that. I hesitated for a moment, then leaned in, brushing my lips against her cheek. Good night, Ryan. She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. Good night, Samuel. I watched her drive off, feeling a sense of relief I hadn't felt in months. Not fixed, not whole. But hopeful. The next few weeks were odd. Good odd, but still odd. Ryan and I started spending time together again, but it all felt different. New. We went to movies, grabbed coffee, took walks in the park, simple things, but everything felt like it had a new layer to it. A possibility that hadn't been there before. Or maybe it had been, and we'd just been too afraid to see it. David tried calling a few times, but I wasn't ready to talk to him. I needed space to sort things out with Ryan first. My mom asked about him on our weekly call, and I just told her we were taking some time apart. She didn't push, which I was grateful for. About a month after our dinner, Ryan invited me over for movie night, just like old times. Her arm was out of the sling, though she mentioned it still hurt sometimes if she overused it. I brought her favorite ice cream and a handful of sour candy worms she always kept hidden. I have something for you, she said, after we settled on the couch. The movie was paused on the opening credits. Oh. I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. She reached behind a cushion and pulled out a small, wrapped package. It's not much, she said with a nervous smile. But I wanted you to have it. I unwrapped it carefully, revealing a keychain with a small sunflower charm. Simple, but meaningful. Ryan, I said, understanding what she meant. To replace the ones you brought that night. Her eyes flickered with vulnerability. I know it's not the same. I leaned in and kissed her, this time not on the cheek, but a real kiss. She froze for a second, then kissed me back, her hand reaching out to rest on my shoulder. When we pulled apart, we both smiled like we just won a prize. I've wanted to do that since I was 13, I confessed, my voice a little shaky. She laughed, her eyes lighting up. Me too. We didn't watch the movie after that. Instead, we spent the night really talking about everything we had been too scared to address for so long. We still joked around, still threw popcorn at each other. Some things stayed the same. But now, there was a new layer to it all. Honesty. It was scary, yet thrilling. The next morning, I woke up on her couch, her head resting on my shoulder. We hadn't gone past kissing yet. We were taking it slow, after all. But waking up next to her felt so right, like nothing else ever had. I carefully moved her head to a pillow and went to make coffee. Her kitchen was exactly as I remembered it, organized chaos, with an overabundance of mugs and hardly any food. I found the coffee beans and started the machine. As I was searching for clean mugs, I noticed a letter on her counter. The seal had already been broken. Inside was a letter, dated the day before I showed up with the flowers, the same day I found that note in her junk mail. But this one was longer, more detailed. Samuel, it started. I've rewritten this letter so many times, and it's never right. So I'm just going to say it. I love you. I have for years. I know this could ruin everything between us, but I can't keep pretending anymore. You're my best friend, my favorite person, the one I want to talk to about everything good or bad. But you're also more than that. I want to know what it's like to be with you. To really be with you. I'm scared, but I'm ready if you are. Love, Ryan. I stood in her kitchen, the letter still in my hands, my heart hammering in my chest. This letter was from before everything fell apart. Before David showed up. Before everything went wrong. I see you found it, Ryan said quietly from the doorway, her hair a mess from sleep. I looked up at her, still holding the letter. You were going to give this to me? She nodded, walking over and taking the coffee mug I had filled for her. That night, she began, I had everything planned out. I was going to make you dinner, hand you the letter, and finally tell you how I felt. And then David showed up, I added. She nodded. Yeah. She took a sip of her coffee, watching me carefully over the rim of the mug. I almost gave it to you anyway, but then he said all those things, and I got scared again. I folded the letter neatly, slipping it back into the envelope. Can I keep this? I asked quietly. She was surprised, then smiled gently. Of course. I tucked the envelope into my pocket and then pulled her into a hug. She fit perfectly against me, her head resting under my chin. We stayed like that for a while, just holding each other in her kitchen, the sunlight creeping through the window. We wasted so much time, she whispered against my chest. I kissed the top of her head. We've got plenty of time now. That was 6 months ago. Ryan and I are officially together now. And it's everything I imagined. Not perfect, still some silly fights. She's still late to everything, and I'm still overthinking everything. But it's real, in a way nothing else ever has been. David and I are slowly rebuilding our relationship. It's hard, and there are moments when I still feel angry. But he's my brother, and Ryan has helped me realize that holding on to that anger was only hurting me. We're not back to where we once were, but we're getting there. Last week, for our 6-month anniversary, Ryan and I went back to that Thai place. I had a speech prepared about how much she meant to me, how happy she made me. But when we sat down, she slid a small box across the table. What's this? I asked, surprised. Open it, she said, her excitement barely contained. Inside the box was a key, her apartment key, on a chain with a tiny sunflower charm that matched the one she'd given me. Move in with me, she said, her voice full of sincerity but not pressure. I'm tired of moving between places. I want to wake up next to you every day. I didn't even need a moment to think. Yes. Next weekend, I'm moving my things in. My lease ends at the end of the month, and her place is bigger. Plus, she has that balcony where we used to sit and talk for hours. I can already picture us there, watching sunsets together. It's funny how life turns out. If you told me a year ago that I'd be here, happy and in love with my best friend, I wouldn't have believed it. Not after everything we went through. But sometimes the longest journeys lead you right where you need to be. Ryan is calling me from the other room now. She's asking for help picking a movie for tonight. Some things never change. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm the happiest I've ever been. And it's all because I finally had the courage to tell her how I felt. Well, technically, she told me first. But who's counting? I need to go now. My girlfriend is waiting for me to settle a very important debate about whether Die Hard counts as a Christmas movie. Spoiler, it absolutely does. Life is good. Really good.